Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video, we're going to be doing a Gothic Glam set of Halloween nails, so I really hope you all enjoy watching. For my products, I'm going to be using Young Nails Clear and Cover Pink, and then I'm going to also be using two products from EL Nail Systems. Now this is in their old Glitterama packaging, but I will leave a link to their website in the description box below. We're going to be using some glitters from Charlie's Nail Art. I'm not too sure where these two black glitters are from because they're old glitters that I've had in my kit for years and they don't have any labels on them, but a lot of the time I pick up my glitters that I'm going to use in acrylics from Charlie's Nail Art Supplies, so I would recommend checking them out. Now this set of nails, I wanted to push myself and do a black and red set of nails. I haven't worked with black or red acrylic in a really long time, and even when I was doing acrylic nails on the regular, these two colours used to scare me. They're super pigmented, so they are a little bit harder to work with, but I had this design in mind and I felt the only two colours it would have worked with was black or red, so I just went with it. Now I'm working on my red iguana practice hand. I've already applied my tips and a clear base, and the middle and ring finger I wanted to have a black and red ombre. One of them I knew I would be coming over with a lot of glitter, and the other one I wanted to simply be a black and red ombre. So whichever one looked the best was going to be the one that wasn't going to be covered up with glitter. So as you can see, I'm coming in with small beads of black acrylic, placing that down, and because I know it's a super pigmented powder, I'm working with it quite thin. So I placed that first bead down, blended it back, then pulled it down towards the tip of the nail, and then I really want that black to pop at the tip of the nail, so I'm coming in with another small bead, always cleaning up my sidewalls to try and keep the application nice and thin. And then as you can see, it's blended out. We really, with black acrylic, want it to be blended out, and I didn't want to go in with too much because I knew that if I come in with my red and I'm not 100% happy with my ombre, I'm going to need to come in with some more black. So I'm trying to keep everything thin at this point so that I can play around with it. Now another thing that I wanted to mention, when you're working with colours like black and red, you really need to clean your brush a lot. Like I changed my paper towel 2 or 3 times whilst working on just these two nails because the pigmentation is crazy and it does get in your brush and then it gets into your monomer, so you want to make sure you're keeping your brush nice and clean. Now for the next part of the ombre, I did come in and place the red down right where that black faded out and started to try and blend it over the black, which was a little bit tricky. I'm then coming in with a bead down at that cuticle area, and because I was really worried about getting a neat cuticle with such a vibrant shade, I drained the back of this bead and then it made it a little bit too dry, so it was a little bit too difficult to work with, so it didn't cover as well as I wanted it to. So I needed to come in with another bead of acrylic to really cover that nail bed area. So I kind of just needed to not be scared of the acrylic at this point, but it is a little bit tricky when you're working with colors like this and doing an ombre, because one part of your mind is thinking about getting a nice neat blend and then the other part is thinking about getting that cuticle area nice and neat as well. So it was a little bit easier that I was working on such long nails, but this was a bit tricky. So I'm coming in with small beads each time until I'm happy with that cuticle and nail bed area, and then also trying to blend this down over the black. Now at this point the acrylic had set quite a lot, so it wouldn't blend anymore. So I'm wiping off some of that red, trying to blend it out just so it looks a little bit smoother. Now I do have to admit the Glitterama acrylics or the EL Nail Systems acrylics are really lovely to work with. They do have a nice buttery consistency and they are very pigmented, so you can choose to either paint them on like I'm doing here, or you can choose to, you know, build with them. They'll use the pattern press motion with your brush. So I did go in with another small bead of black acrylic there and just fixed up that blend, and I was pretty happy with it. Onto this now, I'm going to come in small bead of red acrylic down at that blend area and kind of trying to just focus on creating the blend, blending it down over the black, and I was a bit happier with how this now was going. So then I'm going to start working my way up to that cuticle area, but rather than going straight in at the cuticle, I decided I would come in with another bead that I was going to use for my blend. So I've placed this down, blended it over the previous bead of acrylic to took it down towards the black and then wiping off some of that excess because I want that black to really pop. Then I'm going to come in with my cuticle bead. So I'm picking up a small bead. I'm taking some of the liquid out of the back of it just because I don't want it to flow back and flood the cuticle, because red will stain, and then even if you clean it up you will see a red tint to the area, which is really frustrating. So this is why I'm also cleaning my brush quite a lot. So if I go in to clean up around that cuticle area, I'm doing it with a nice clean brush so that I don't add any colour to the cuticle area. And then I'm just coming in with really small beads, painting on this colour until I'm happy with it. You can see there's little patches where the black is showing through over the red. So I'm trying my best to cover those up, but I was just too scared to work with a bigger bead of acrylic, which probably would have made this a whole lot easier. But I got there in the end, and in the end this was the nail that I was most happy with when it come to the ombre. So I ended up just leaving this nail the plain black and red. I definitely will come back and do another black and red nail with some more practice at some point. I don't know when, but at some point. Now on this nail was the nail I wanted to come in with lots of glitters, and I wanted it to look really sparkly. So when I'm working with glitters, I really love to layer them up. So I'm coming in with a super fine glitter to begin with. I just remembered actually, I think this one is from Trilogy Nail Systems, and it's a super fine black holographic glitter. So I'm kind of just creating a swoosh effect. It looks a bit crazy at this point, but it does all come together. So I'm just creating a swoosh going across the nail, and this is just, you're not really going to see too much of this particular fine glitter, but I wanted some of those sparkles to come through. And then over the top of this I'm gonna layer on a dot mix. This is why I wanted those finer sparkles to come through, just because I love how that looks underneath a dot mix, especially when you're wearing the nails yourself and the glitter catches the light in certain angles. You can really see it gives the nail a bit of dimension, a bit of depth, because you've got different types of sparkles coming through. Obviously the chunkier dots are quite bold, and then those finer glitters underneath are a little bit more subtle, but you will see them. So I'm picking up each of my glitters using a small bead of the Young Nails clear acrylic, and then just laying those glitters down, and then using my wet brush I'm nudging them around without adding any more acrylic, just so I can get the glitters into place without the nail being too bulky. Then over the top of those dots I'm coming in with this more medium cut hexagon mix. Again, this is a black holographic mix, and just look how all the different pieces are catching the light when you move that nail. It looks magical, and it really just gave off the vibe that I wanted for this set. I kind of had like this goth glam image in mind, but then also like a masquerade ball style as well, so I tried to just combine the two. I did sweep over a little bit of clear acrylic just so all of those glitters are going to be held in place so they don't move around when we encapsulate. On to the pointer finger, I kind of wanted to go for a bit of a glass tip, but you're not going to see too much because we are going to be coming in with some glitters. So I wanted to place down some dried flowers. So I went in with a wet bead of clear acrylic. We have already got our clear base underneath, so we're not applying anything directly to the nail tip. We've already got that thin layer of clear acrylic, but then I'm putting down a small bead of clear acrylic and then pressing those dried flowers into that clear acrylic so that they've got something to stick down into, and then just washing a little bit of clear acrylic over the top of them to hold them in place. Same as with the glitters, just because we don't want them to move around when we're encapsulating, and it can be a little bit harder when you're working with either chunky glitters or larger things like the flowers that you're encapsulating. I then was picking out individual dots. I just placed down a bead onto my paper towel, and I was just picking up the sizes and the colors that I wanted to kind of place down in between those flowers. And then I felt as though the nail was looking a little bit too plain, so I do come in with some of the medium black hexagon mix as well, just in certain areas, because I wanted to ombre my nude acrylic over the top of this, so it kind of looks as though the image starts underneath the pinky nude cover color. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't too plain, and we kind of was covering up that free edge a little bit more. And then of course I wanted there to be lots of sparkles in this nail. I did also know from the beginning of this set that I wanted to layer on the kind of like chain across the top of this nail as well. So I wanted to make sure there was a lot going on. I'm going to leave that to set, and then on the little finger I thought, hey, we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone today. Let's do a red and nude ombre. So we're coming in with our red acrylic, painting this on nice and thin to begin with, but then I realized it was just a little bit too thin, so I come in with another bead of acrylic. Whenever you're doing any kind of ombre, you want to make sure you're really blending that color back, especially when working with a color like red. I should have probably blended this back a little bit more, but I just went with it. I did then decide that I didn't want this to be plain. We're going with the whole Gothic Glam look, so everything's got to be quite out there and over the top. So I placed down this little black butterfly embellishment. I didn't have anything Halloweeny that suited the whole goth glam look, so I felt as though the black butterfly worked the best. Again, just placing down a clear wash of acrylic to hold that in place, and then we're going to go in with the Young Nails at Cover Pink on our ombre nails. So I'm placing this bead down at the cuticle to begin with, tapping it into place, trying to get a nice neat cuticle, and then blending it down. Now this is quite a soft shade. It's quite buildable or versatile in the fact that if you use it a little bit drier or build it up a little bit more, then it does look more opaque, but it is semi-sheer at the same time. So it's really beautiful for an ombre, because as you can see, when we blend it over those glitters, you can still see them enough through there. Like, it's not too opaque that it covers everything up. So it works really, really well for an ombre. As you can see from the pot, it's not a color I've used very often, but it was really lovely to work with. So I'm just, with this nail, building up my apex area so that I don't have to come in and fully encapsulate with the clear, because this is a strength powder. If you watch my videos, you know that this is how I prefer to work. The less encapsulation I have to do, the better. So on this now, and the pointer and the little finger, I'm going to basically build up the nail bed area and the cuticle area and build up my apex using the core color, so then we only have to put a thin clear encapsulation layer down. So starting off on this now, again coming in with a small bead at that blend area to begin with, trying to create a nice blend. I did feel as though this was going to be a little bit tricky over the red, but I was quite happy with how it turned out. Again, with that cuticle bead, slightly more on the medium side, tapping it into place at the cuticle area and then pulling it down. I don't know what quite happened here. As I pulled off my acrylic, it just pulled off too much, so it ended up leaving a little dip in the side wall of the nail. So I do come in with another bead just to make sure that we build up that area. I felt as though I used so many beads of acrylic, but it's because I'm not wanting to use large beads of acrylic because I just don't have the confidence to yet. But obviously this was quite a long set of nails, so you did need a lot of acrylic to do the design and build up your structure. So it took a little bit of practice. But I'm just cleaning up now around those side walls, and then also just blending the colour down, trying to create that ombre as best as I could. Now looking at it now, I do feel as though it could have been a little bit better. This bead does actually make it a bit better, but it was just where my red wasn't blended out as much as it could have been. But you know, you learn from these things, and that's why I wanted to get back into practicing acrylic, but not do it off camera. I wanted to share it on camera so I can share it along with you guys, because I used to love creating acrylic videos, and then I got out of the swing of using acrylic and then felt as though I needed to practice before I could start uploading acrylic videos. But I don't have time to practice and upload videos, so I thought I'd just take you guys along on the journey of rediscovering how to work with acrylic and rediscovering new brands and things like that. Like, I was really surprised to sort of see that Glitterama had rebranded and things like that. I definitely want to buy some more of their newer colors. I loved their old system. If you have any acrylic brands that you would like to recommend, drop the recommendations in the comments, because I'm trying to work through a lot of the products I already have. Where I don't work on clients, I only do content nowadays. I have lots of products to get through, but I would also love to try some new brands as well, as it's really nice to see how different acrylic brands work and find the ones that work for you. My go-tos have always been CJP and Diamond Nail Supplies, but using Glitterama again reminded me how much I loved them. Trying the Young Nail system has been great as well, as that's been really lovely to work with. So whilst I was waffling away there, I did go in and encapsulate the little finger. I did the other 3 nails off camera because the video was already quite long, but as you can see, this is what they looked like when they was all encapsulated, and then this is what they looked like once they had been filed and buffed. They did take a bit of filing, I'm not gonna lie. I think partly it was because of the length and partly my application just was not 100% on point, but your file is your best friend in those situations, and I did fully hand file them as well. So I'm going to come in now and top coat. I'm using the Young Nails top coat for here. So I'm coming in, this is a slightly thicker consistency top coat, but it's really lovely to work with, especially over acrylics as well, because as you can see, when you file the nails, if you don't overly buff them, it does leave the scratches behind, and then this really filled those scratches in, and it did also give the most amazing shine as well. So especially over these glitters, I just loved how much this nail in particular come to life. Now I'm going to apply the top coat to all of the nails, and then whilst it's still wet, I'm going to lay down my chains that I wanted to apply on the little finger and the pointer finger. Now you could glue these on directly over the acrylic nail and then top coat around them, but I've always found it easier to just set them in the top coat, and as long as you've got a good quality top coat, when I've wore them on myself, I've never had any issues with them chipping or coming off. They might be a little bit aggravating if you've got clients that tend to pick at things, because you would be able to pick at them and then that might cause them to break down, but as long as you don't mess about with them and you follow good aftercare, I've always found that sort of sticking crystals or embellishments down in my top coat has been the easiest way to apply them. This isn't a rubber top coat, but it is a slightly thicker top coat compared to a lot of regular no wipe top coats I've used, so I found this one sufficient enough to lay those chains down in. But if you was using a thin top coat, I would maybe recommend gluing them down, or like I said, reach for something like a rubber top coat where it's that little bit thicker. If you've watched a lot of my Kiki videos over on the Kiki channel, you'll see that I use their rubber top coat, especially for applying crystals. So here I've got my piece of chain, I'm laying it down on the nail, and then I was just using some cuticle nippers to nip it to length. They do nip off really easy. And then I was just using another cuticle tool to kind of like manipulate the chain into place. It was just, I was at this point of the nails where I was like, I really need to just get these done. So I was just reaching for what I had to hand. But yeah, I found the cuticle nippers the easiest thing to cut these kind of things with. They're nice and sharp. These are the K&S tools from Kiki London as well. Now, once you have finally got your chains down in place, you're going to pop that into cure for 60 seconds, and this was the finished result. So we got there in the end. It was a bit of a tricky design, but I loved how they turned out, and I'm glad I took the time to push myself out of my comfort zone and use 2 coloured acrylics that I'm quite scared of. So if you made it to the end, thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, do give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment below and let me know what you're doing for Halloween. We are going trick-or-treating and my little girl cannot wait. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.